And this is Pat Hill, with her 24-year-old mare Berrydale, who is by Fairley Diamond. Just behind Berrydale in a minute you'll see Miss Etherington, who breeds Exmoors. She used to have the Highland Stallion Grey Jock, who is in every pedigree of all the ponies here today. And in the background is Diana Kellogg on her Big Grey by Glenfalloch, and with her daughter on Smoky. This is Broom Burnett. By the way, Pat, what gave you the idea for starting these Exmoor rides?
During the 60s, I was leading treks from Mrs. Webber's stable in Minehead. I always rode my Berrydale, or Molly, both Highlands. It occurred to me that many of my friends in the southwest who had bred Highlands never got a chance to see the finished product at work. So I determined to get all private owners together and have a day's trekking on the moor.
And here we come. Pat on the right on Berrydale, and on her left another of her ponies, Molly, bred on Exmoor by Miss Mellow Brown. An anxious moment looking at the traffic before we cross the road. There's a crossbred, Sandy, and there am I, Meg Mason, on Woodbeer Ailsa. Sylvia Stevens on Dolphin, the grey. To her right, Steve, her husband, on Flora of Pokeford. In the background you will see in a bowler Dilly Powell, 80 years old and riding her 3-year-old Broom Burnett. On the right there, Cohudium Ray of New Calgary, better known to us as Hoodie, and on the left his son, Tidjin Muir of New Calgary. Now we're coming up through Horner Woods, crossing and recrossing Horner Water. This can be very dangerous in the winter. Some time ago a stag hunter was killed here, drowned, when his horse stumbled over a boulder and he fell into the rushing torrent. But today there's not very much water there, as you can see. Now we should be crossing again. Berrydale, and then Captain Hartley Edwards on Woodbeer Katie, Molly, Joyce Trow on Mark of Nash End, and then Diana Kellogg on Otter Tuppence, and her daughter on Smoky. That's the crossbred, and there's Woodbeer Duncan, and Coynier, who's by McCoynier. And that's Woodbeer Fergus, ridden by Mary Drummond, and Dilly again on Broom Burnett. And that's Tidjin Muir, Sylvia on Dolphin, Meg on Ailsa, and Hoodie, ridden by Judy, and Steve on Flora of Pokeford.
1972 was rather a special year, as Captain Hartley Edwards, editor of Riding magazine, sportingly accepted an invitation to join the ride. In a subsequent article he wrote, "We rode through Horner Woods, crossing Horner Water and onto the moor just under Dunkery Beacon, circled the barrows, and in time returned to Horner for tea. Not, however, before the Highland Brigade had indulged in a pre-lunch charge over the moor, egged on by Pat Hill. What a cavalry commander she would have made. Did our ride over some of the most beautiful country in Britain prove anything? Perhaps not. But it did confirm that the Highland is supreme under those conditions. We had our occasional excitements, of course. One pony couldn't resist a roll in the heather, and another jumped so big over a rocky stream that it quite took the rider by surprise. But what a revelation to see a group of ponies in the full range of ancient colourings demonstrating their inherent sure-footedness, each one descending the combes in identical fashion, hops well under, 4 feet lifted, poised and carefully set down, the one after the other. Above all, I shall remember this meeting of the south of the border members and their ponies as happy, fun-filled days, full of smiles, laughter and good fellowship. Isn't that, since the object of the charge was lunch, and not enemy emplacements, everybody is enjoying themselves, including the ponies.
And there we go, having a marvellous gallop. Everybody one after the other. There's Pat Hill, Hartley Edwards in the centre. There's Meg at the back, seems to have got left behind. Oh no, Berrydale's the tail end Charlie. Pat's obviously changed onto Molly for this gallop, so as not to tire Berrydale too much. And there we all are at the end of Stoke Ridge, stopping now for lunch and about to meet the car people. There's Hoodie, well steamed up after a good gallop. And Claire having an argument with her mother about something, obviously. And there we go again, homeward bound. She'll go down into the coombe and past Sweetery, and then Cloutsome Ball. There in the background's Dunkery. The moor looked absolutely lovely. It was a great shame that year there was an awful outbreak of the cough, and many people who would have come on this ride were therefore unable to take part, which must have been a great disappointment, although several of them came in their cars. There's Dunkery again. You can see the ponies winding away. Here we are. Pat's called a halt at the road to let the tail end Charlies catch up before we cross again over the main road where there's a bit of traffic. There's Elwyn Hartley Edwards on Woodbere Katie, and in front of him Judy with Hoodie, just going to have one last canter on the green. That's Tidgin Mere of New Calgary. Back at Horner Green now. Here's Pat on Molly. Yes, she did change ponies, of course. Wonderful little pony Molly's carried her over the moor for years. Oh, and there's Sylvia. She's changed ponies as well. She's now on Flora. There's Dilly. 3.5 hours on the moor, and none the worse. Everybody now putting their ponies away. They'll all be watered and put in their boxes with a hay net. And we shall repair to the tea place and indulge in a vast cream tea and the Exmoor rag cake. And Pat will present every pony here with a commemorative rosette. And everyone gathering for the 1973 Highland Pony ride over Exmoor. Here's Berrydale, 28 now. She's a big mare by Fayley Darmond. There in the background, people getting their ponies out of their boxes. Rodney Salter on Woodbere Fiona, talking to Joyce Trow. There's Pat Hill, welcoming all her guests. 2 ponies from the Sunglow stud. The little one is Chunky of Sunglow. And that's Christine Ross on Dulcie. And again, that's Woodbere Fiona, and Meg Mason in the background. Pat Hill mounting up on Katie. She's riding Katie this year. And that's Claire Stevenson, aged 8, riding the 3-year-old Body Do. A portrait of Katie, and one of Woodbere Fiona. And there's the crossbred from the Sunglow stud. And that's Dulcie again, with Christine Ross. I think we're just about to move off now. Yes, we are. Here's Pat Hill trotting smartly down the road and off onto the tracks now. This is one of those lovely little packhorse bridges. There's so many around Exmoor. Woodbere Katie, Jupiter the crossbred, Chunky of Sunglow, Berrydale, Molly, Corrie-Doo, Dulcie, Woodbere Bronze Lady, Woodbere Gay Galliard, and Woodbere Fiona. Now we're getting out of the sunshine into the nice cool of the shade. Rodney's having difficulty with his girth. There weren't quite so many people on the ride this year as there had been a great outbreak of the cough. Here we come into the sun again. The sea will be on our right and we're riding towards Porlock. Now onto the road. There was a little bit of road work this time, but the traffic didn't worry us too much. That's Dulcie, Woodbere Bronze Lady, Woodbere Gay Galliard, and Woodbere Fiona. You'll see Woodbere Gay Galliard at the back, who's better known as Bothwell, has a very dark tail and a lovely youth stripe, but later on in life he became completely grey like his half-sister Fiona.
The party left Horner Green to skirt the woods and climb up from Holcombe to Holcombe Head. At first there is a wide rushing stream with many deep fords as the path winds to and fro across the coombe. It is pleasant to ride with the sound of gushing water and pony hooves, and to note how the scene changes with the height above sea level. At first there are tall oak, birch, alder, and an abundance of different fern, holly, and hawthorn. Later, scrub oak takes over, and as the rider scrambles up smaller, steeper paths into the heather of the hill, all the trees are left behind, and the stream becomes a trickle culminating in its source, an emerald green patch most treacherous for horse and rider. Pat always provides for her party something that is just that little bit more than a ride. The magic of the day lingers for many weeks, be it with the blue of a whole hillside covered with milkwort, or the exhilaration of a sharp canter down a steep heather-clad nap.
And now we can see the ride very nicely. Behind them on the hill was completely blue with milkwort, a wonderful sight, but unfortunately you can't see it on the film. The ponies have been climbing now for the best part of an hour, but they've kept very well together. It's quite a hot day, and some of them did begin to sweat quite a bit. Katie in front, Bothwell next, then the two ponies and the Sungo-Stud, and behind Molly and Berrydale, still keeping up, and would be a bronze lady. In and out there is a flatter portion, and there we're able to trot on a little bit. Here's Corridor, cantering to catch up, and Rodney on would be a Fiona. Dulcie, Molly, and Berrydale still going gamely along.
Always keep your pony feet in heather, cautioned Pat, and the ride had a smart canter over Hawkham Head, the younger ponies demonstrating that in spite of an hour-long uphill climb, the Exmoor ride was not entirely devoid of thrills and spills.
And there goes Judy, our bronze lady, a nasty smack. And if you watch Rodney, he was looking at her and he nearly joined her. No one else seemed very concerned, and everybody cantered on, but fortunately Judy managed to get back into the saddle, and we had a lovely gallop all over Lucat Moor. So Berry going along gamely still. There comes Rodney, more settled down now, I hope. Although Fiona has her own ideas where she's going, he doesn't seem to be very well in control at this moment. This is his first ride, long ride, and he's only been riding for less than 2 years since he married Ruth Mason. Now I think you can see us on the horizon. Let me see. Yes, there we are, just a few dots, right on the top of the hill. We've come off Lucat Moor now, and coming down towards Lucat Farm. This used to be a big manor once upon a time, much more important in fact than Porlock. But that is no longer so, although it's still a farm. Looking across, you can see how the farming has eaten into the moorland bit by bit. Fields have been ploughed up and reseeded to give better grazing and better income, and the moor has gradually shrunk. Now we're coming down off the heather over the pasture of the farm. There's, you can see the lovely patchwork of the fields and the sea beyond and Wales in the distance. Here there was another stretch of heather, and we had a rather a fast canter downhill. It doesn't look very steep here, but it was, and it was really quite exciting. And I wondered how many people were going to survive to the end, but everybody did. I think by now Berry had gone home. She only did a halfway stint. And Katie, she's by Jaunty Laddie of Manshay, as is Bronze Lady, and Fiona, and Bothwell, so quite a few of his progeny out today. There's a lovely view of the sea again. It really was the most heavenly day, and we seem to have been very lucky with our rides with Pat Hill, always blessed with marvellous weather. There's Molly. I think now we're going to stop for lunch, and the car people will have come up with sandwiches and drinks, which will be very welcome today. And there we are lining up for a black and white photograph that appeared in quite a few pony magazines in this country and on the continent as well, which was quite a compliment, we thought. First little corridor on the end, this end, rescued by Dilly Pole from a croft up in Scotland where she'd been sold from Benny because they thought she was such a ghastly sort of pony that they sold her without her papers. But Dilly heard about this and managed to rescue her, brought her down here, and after a struggle got her registered. Unfortunately, she was denied her true suffix, which was of New Calgary. That's Woodby Bronze Lady. And there is Dilly, sizing up the crossbred from the Sunglow side. And here she is coming across to talk to the two youngsters, one riding her corridor. There's Christine Ross with Dulcie. Chunky of Sunglow, who I think has some New Calgary blood in him somewhere, but I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure how he is bred. That's Pat Hill mounted up, gathering up her people to start on the journey home. That's her young friend on Molly. That's the crossbred from the Sunglow son. That's Chunky. Dulcie. Would-be a Bronze Lady. Would-be a Fiona. Corridor, and finally Bothwell.
After another 2 hours of glorious riding, the party ended up with a quick canter along Granny's Ride and Cat Scramble. Sure-footed ponies made no bones about the switchback path through a mile or two of twisted oak, but when the narrow way clung crazily to the steep hillside, the rider with a not too good head for heights was well advised to keep his eyes firmly on his pony's ears.
Now we're all safely back at Horner Green after a really wonderful ride. Everybody seems quite fresh, except perhaps Bothwell, who was a little bit tired, I remember. He was only just 3.5 and had only recently been broken in, so he didn't do too badly. Now everybody will be unpacking, watering their ponies and putting them away with our helmets. And I think we owe Pat Hill a great debt of thanks, really, for these marvellous rides that she organises. Here is the cake that we're all going to eat at the end of the 1976 Exmoor ride. It's a very beautiful affair, nicely decorated with a Highland Pony in the top left-hand corner. Here's David, acting as groom today, so unable to ride, poor fella. On the right there is Rudel of Callerton, and talking to her would-be a Fingal, having a little chat there. That's Stella Jones in a bit of a hurry. Everybody getting out of their boxes now. Here comes Pound Sheldon Joy Bells in the left, on the left at the back, Derlick of Tarquois, and another Pound Pony on the right. Elwyn with us again today, this time on Would-be a Fiona. David helping me up on Would-be a Gay Galliard. There's Would-be a Katie in the background. Everybody adjusting their girths, etc. before moving off. Here comes Pat on Would-be a Katie, and on her right, Pound Sheldon Celtic Myth that she bought to replace Berrydale, who sadly is no longer with us. On her left, in the blue anorak, is Would-be a Fingal, and behind Would-be a Tam O'Shanter, then Kitty Jarvis on Knot of Nash End. I'm afraid it's rather difficult to pick out the ponies here, but they'll cross the water again in a minute, and yes, Would-be a Katie. Pound Sheldon Celtic Myth, Would-be a Tam O'Shanter, and Hector, an unregistered Highland, came down from Scotland. In the background, Angus of Whitefield. There's Would-be a Fiona, Bingle having a drink, Would-be a Gay Galliard, gone quite grey since the last film, you'll notice. That's Knot of Nash End, Would-be a Aileen, and Would-be a Wee Sensation. Derlich of Tarquois, and Pound Sheldon Red Gauntlet. Oh, this is Pound Sheldon Joybell. Doesn't like the water too much. Oh, here comes Lynetta Harrison on Woodbeer Duncan to give her a lead, I think. Yes, now she's going to go. That's Dunberry of Killam, Curlew of Tallerton, and Andrew of Birchwood. This is Sylvia Wood on Trown Bluebird, bred in Scotland by Mrs. Davidson. And this is Glentoe Flora. Tony Wood on Canna Carrack, also bred in Scotland. There we go, what a wonderful sight. 30 ponies out today. All Highlands, really quite something. Half of them were bred in this part of the country. At this time there were 11 studs in Devon, Somerset and Cornwall. 10 of them concentrating on breeding the Western Island type of pony. There's the tail end Charles cantering to keep up. With 30 ponies, this was really more of a trek than a ride because it was obviously too dangerous to go fast. Well, it must be dry because we're raising quite a cloud of dust there under Robin Howe. And I remember on the left there was a rather nice bunch of Exmoor ponies. Here we come up towards Dunkery Beacon with the Brendans in the background. Pat Hill took us right down to Dunkery Hill Gate so that we could climb up Dunkery with no view in front of us, and then as you reach the beacon it bursts on you. And on a clear day you can see 9 counties in England and Wales. As you see right in the far distance, it's beginning to get a bit misty, and I hope it doesn't increase or that'll spoil our view. Well, there comes the sea mist. What a shame. However, we've still got patches of sunlight, so it isn't too bad. Pat in front on Katie, on her left Celtic Myth, on the right. Minnie, as she calls Woodbeer Aileen, she bought her especially for the children to ride. That's Woodbeer Duncan, Derlich of Tarquois, Pound Sheldon Red Gauntlet, Woodbeer Fiona, Woodbeer Tam O'Shanter. I think the grey is Sawn of Glenbucky, who did so well later at Olympia, you may remember. Belongs to Cathy McVicker and bred in Scotland. There's Wendy on Dunbury of Killam and Andrew of Birchwood. Hector. There's Angus of Whitefield and Fergustine behind, both bred in Scotland. There's Callum of Kinmonth, ridden by little Susan Mason. There am I with Tony Wood bringing up the rear. We were asked to ride at the back to pick up any pieces, but fortunately there weren't any pieces to pick up. Up at Dunkery Beacon now to have our sandwiches, but it was rather cold, so Pat decided to move off fairly promptly. Makes rather a nice silhouette with all the ponies against the sky, but I think you do miss the lovely dun colours. Difficult to tell who they are in silhouette, actually. We'll pick out one or two. There's Angus of Whitefield and an Ash End pony nearest to us. And there's little Minnie. She got rather a lovely head. Down into the sunlight again, winding away down towards Webber's Post. There comes the mist, rolling up over the moor.
Sometimes on Exmoor and on Dartmoor too, the mist comes down quite suddenly and one can be utterly lost. Luckily we have Pat, who knows every step of the moor as does her pony. Pat bought Katie as a wean foal, and they have both lived near the moor ever since. Long before she was broken in, Katie ran free beside Pat, who was riding Berrydale or Molly over the moors. Katie never strayed. Sometimes Pat would stop and let all the ponies loose to graze. Never once have they wandered off or made for home. Quite remarkable. Of course, the Highland is no stranger to Exmoor. Local tradition has it that Carver Doone was an exiled Scot and that he and his marauding gang were mounted on dun ponies. The legendary spectre horse Catafalco, who once haunted Exmoor, was eventually caught and kept by the Froudes of East Anstey. Catafalco was described as a dun Galloway stallion, about 14 hands, with a black list down his back. Galloway was an ancient district of the extreme southwest of Scotland. Its native pony, thought to be akin to the pony of the Highlands, and was dun or black. It was strong, tough, and speedy. Galloway races were still held at Inverness in 1909. The breed is now extinct.
Back at Horner Wood again in the sunshine, leaving the ghosts of the moor behind in the mist. Difficult again to pick up people and when they're so close together. Ah, there's Celtic myth. And there's Lynetta Harrison on Woodbere Duncan. You can always tell Lynetta, she's got her hat over one ear. But a great sport comes every year. That's Hector. Here's little Susan Mason on Callum of Kinmonth. And the grey on the right is Coolin Braydew. These are two guests from the Woods Riding Centre on Exmoor. And this is Woodbere Fingal, followed by Wendy Hanby on Dunbury of Killam. There's Kitty Jarvis on the left talking to Elwyn. Fiona doesn't seem to be particularly tired. And this is Angus of Whitefield and Fergusine, two ponies that came down from Scotland. And in the back, that's Kirtley of Tallerton. I think Pat must have been a bit stiff, so she's having a bit of a walk. Here comes Tony on Carrot Canna, still very bouncy. I think Canna was very annoyed just having to stay at the back all the time. Pat leading Woodbere Katie the last few hundred yards. Sylvia Wood on Trown Bluebird. There's everybody unboxing. Boxing, I mean.
After seeing to their ponies, riders will gather for the traditional cream tea and Exmoor ride cake. Pat in her tam o' shanter heads the table, with Elwyn on her right and Meg on her left, next to Tony Wood. David is standing at the far end, and soon everyone will be on their feet. Weary but happy folk will set off for their various homes. They will say goodbye to friends as the sun begins to dip behind the moor. And so we say farewell to the 1976 ride.